My name is Eudora Granger. I am 78 years old. I live in a quiet town called Willow Creek, somewhere in the heart of the United States. I grew up on a small farm, raised 3 children, and now I live alone in a modest house surrounded by memories and silence. I thought my later years would be peaceful, days filled with gentle sunshine, the sound of birds, and visits from my granddaughter Lila. But peace is a luxury I lost the day my granddaughter let her boyfriend into my life in a way I never imagined. If you are watching this story, I want you to take a moment right now. Please hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on the notifications so you never miss a story like mine. Stories of pain, strength, and survival. And while you're here, leave a comment telling me which part of the country you are watching from. I want to know who stands with me because this story is bigger than me. It is about all of us who have faced betrayal and found a way to fight back. That day began like any other. Lila came to visit with a smile that hid a secret I was not yet ready to hear. But what happened next shattered everything I thought I knew about family and trust. Her boyfriend, a man named Travis, was charming on the outside. But behind closed doors, he showed a darkness no one expected. One afternoon, while Lila was away, Travis crossed a line no one should ever cross. And my life was never the same again. I tried to scream, tried to fight, but I was powerless in that moment. What made it worse was knowing Lila saw it all and did nothing. She let it happen. She allowed him to hurt me. That night, alone in my room, I made a decision. I would not be a victim forever. But how do you fight back when those who should protect you turn their backs? And then, just when I thought it could not get worse, I heard the news that shook me to my very core. Travis and Lila were getting married. Their wedding was set for 2 weeks from that day. And I knew I had to crash that wedding, not just to expose them but to take back my life in a way they would never forget. But what I did next was more than just revenge. It was justice. It was my story. And I promise you, you will want to hear every moment. Before I tell you more, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this story. Takes courage to tell the truth. Takes strength to listen. And I am here to share everything with you. Before the day Travis ruined my life, before the betrayal that still burns in my heart, I want you to know who I was, and who Lila was to me. I grew up in a small town called Cedar Springs, where everyone knew your name and your business. Life was simple but hard. I married my husband, Harold, when I was just 19. We worked the farm together, raised 3 children, and built a life full of laughter and tears. Harold passed away 10 years ago, leaving me alone with memories. My children are grown, living their own lives, busy with their own families. But Lila, my granddaughter, was my light. She was everything I had left. When Lila was a child, she spent every summer at my house. We picked berries, baked pies, and watched the stars. I taught her to sew, to garden, and most importantly, to stand up for herself. She was bright, kind, and full of dreams. But as she grew older, I noticed a change. She became distant, secretive. The phone calls stopped, the visits became rare. She told me she was busy with work and friends, but I sensed something was wrong. One day Lila called me in tears. She said she had met someone. His name was Travis. She said he was charming and funny, that he made her feel alive again. I was happy for her, truly. Every grandmother wants her granddaughter to be loved. But then the whispers began. Friends warned me about Travis. They said he had a temper, that he wasn't the man Lila believed him to be. I tried to warn Lila gently, but she shut me out. She said I didn't understand her life, that I was old-fashioned and judgmental. I loved her too much to fight, so I kept my fears to myself. Then came the day when Lila and Travis moved in together. At first I was hopeful. Maybe this was the start of something good. But soon the cracks appeared. Lila stopped calling. She stopped visiting. And I started to feel the cold silence between us, like a wall I could not break through. I waited for her to reach out. But the phone never rang. Then, out of nowhere, Travis showed up at my door. He said he wanted to talk, to make peace. I let him in because I wanted to believe in kindness. That's when the nightmare began. What happened after that visit is a memory I try to push away. But it haunts me every day. The man who was supposed to love my granddaughter, the man she trusted, was the one who hurt me most. I was alone, scared, and trapped. And when I looked to Lila for help, she turned her back. Why? 'Cause she chose him over me. That betrayal cut deeper than anything else in my life. But I refused to be broken. I began to plan. I began to fight. And I promised myself that when their wedding day came, I would not be invisible. Because a grandmother's love is stronger than pain. And sometimes the quietest voice demands to be heard. After that terrible day with Travis, I felt like the ground had fallen beneath me. But I refused to let him win. I knew I had to be strong, not just for myself but for the truth. Days turned into weeks. I stayed mostly inside my small house, afraid to face the world but unable to hide from my own thoughts. I kept thinking about Lila, my granddaughter, and why she chose to protect a man who hurt me. One afternoon, as I sat by the window, the phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. I hesitated but answered. A voice on the other end whispered, "Eudora, you're not alone. There are things you don't know about Travis." I was shocked and scared. How did this stranger know my name? What did they mean? The caller said they were a friend of Lila's from high school. They told me stories about Travis, about the secrets he kept and the darkness he carried inside. He wasn't the charming man I had met. He was dangerous, abusive, and controlling. I realized then that Lila had been blinded by love, or maybe fear. I wanted to warn her again, but I knew it wouldn't be easy. She was already tangled too deep. That night I started writing everything down. Every memory, every warning, every hurt. I needed to hold on to the truth before it slipped away. But the hardest part was knowing that my own family was silent. My children didn't ask, didn't check in. They believed Lila's side of the story, or maybe they didn't want to face the ugly truth. Felt alone. Forgotten. But inside something was growing, a fire. I began to plan how I would take back my life and expose the truth. Their wedding day was coming. And when it arrived, they wouldn't expect what I had in store. But before that day, I had to prepare. I needed allies and evidence. I reached out to that mysterious caller and others who had suffered because of Travis. Piece by piece, the puzzle started to come together. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for justice. And when the day of the wedding came, I would be ready. The days after that strange phone call were a turning point. I wasn't going to sit quietly anymore. I needed help, but I didn't know who I could trust. I remembered Mrs. Hattie, my neighbor from down the street. She was a kind woman who had lived through her own battles. Maybe she could be a friend in this dark time. One afternoon I invited her over for tea. I told her everything. About Travis, Lila's silence, and my plan to stop the wedding. Her eyes filled with tears, and she took my hand firmly. "Eudora," she said, "you are stronger than you think. You don't have to fight alone." Together we reached out to a local women's support group. The women there listened without judgment. They helped me understand my rights and the options I had. One of the women, Claire, was a retired lawyer. She offered to help me gather evidence to expose Travis. It wasn't just about stopping the wedding. It was about protecting others from his cruelty. At the same time, I secretly contacted a private investigator. I wanted to know everything about Travis. His past, his secrets, the lies he told Lila. It was hard to stay hopeful when every call, every visit reminded me of the pain. But with each small step I felt stronger. Then, one night I received a package in the mail. Inside was a folder full of photographs and documents the investigator had found. They showed Travis's true nature. Not the charming boyfriend, but a man with a history of violence and deceit. My heart raced. This was the proof I needed. But there was still one thing that haunted me. Lila's silence. Why did she protect him? Was she scared? Or was there something else? I knew I had to face her, to understand her pain and maybe, just maybe, find a way to save her from the darkness she was trapped in. But time was running out. The wedding was only days away. I was ready to crash their perfect day. Not with anger but with the truth. And when that day came, Everyone would finally see who Travis really was. The night before Travis and Lila's wedding was quiet outside, but inside my heart, a storm was raging. I sat alone at my kitchen table, the folder of evidence spread out in front of me like a battlefield map. Every photo, every document reminded me of the pain, the betrayal, and the fight ahead. I thought about Lila, my granddaughter, and wondered how she could be standing next to a man who had destroyed my life. Was she too afraid to break free? Or had she given up hope? I poured a cup of tea and sat by the window, staring at the stars. They were the only witnesses to my tears and prayers. Mrs. Hattie had stayed with me most of the day, helping me prepare. Claire, the lawyer, had advised me on what to say and how to act tomorrow. But no amount of preparation could calm the fear deep inside me. At midnight, I received a call from the private investigator. "Eudora," he whispered, "there's something else you need to know. Travis has been hiding more than you realize." He told me about a secret from Travis's past. A crime that was never solved, something dark that could destroy him completely. I felt a surge of hope. This was more than just revenge. This was justice. But it also meant danger. I was no longer just crashing a wedding. I was stepping into a war zone. As the clock ticked closer to dawn, I packed a small bag. I didn't know what the day would bring, but I knew I had to be ready for anything. Before I went to bed, I looked at a photo of Lila when she was a little girl. Smiling, full of life. I whispered a promise to her. "No matter what happens tomorrow, I will fight for you." Because love doesn't always mean standing by. Sometimes it means standing up. The sun rose slowly over Willow Creek, casting a soft glow over the town. It should have been a day of celebration, filled with laughter and love. But for me, it was a day of reckoning. The church bells rang, calling friends and family to gather. I watched from a distance, hidden behind a row of oak trees, clutching the folder of evidence close to my chest. I could see Lila in her wedding dress, radiant but with a sadness in her eyes I couldn't forget. Travis stood at the altar, smiling like the man everyone thought he was. But I knew the truth. My heart ached for Lila, for the girl she used to be, innocent and full of hope. I took a deep breath and stepped forward. I wasn't here to ruin a wedding. I was here to save a life, maybe more than one. As I walked toward the church doors, I thought about all the moments that led me here. The pain, the silence, the betrayal. But I was no longer afraid. I was ready. Inside the church, the music swelled. Guests whispered, unaware of the storm about to break. I caught Lila's eye for a moment. She looked away. But I had one last chance to reach her, to show her the truth she refused to see. And when I did, everything changed. The church was packed. Friends, family, neighbors, all gathered to witness what should have been a joyous union. But I stood there with a secret heavier than any bouquet or wedding vow. As the minister began to speak, I cleared my throat. All eyes turned to me, and a hush fell over the room. "My name is Eudora Granger," I said, voice steady but filled with years of pain. "I am the grandmother of the bride. And I am here to tell you the truth about Travis." Gasps echoed through the church. Lila's face turned pale. Travis's smile vanished, replaced by a scowl. I reached into my bag and pulled out the folder. Photos, documents, and stories from those who knew the real Travis. I have proof that this man has a past full of lies, abuse, and violence. He hurt me, and he has hurt others. Murmurs grew louder. Some guests began whispering, others gasped in disbelief. Lila stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. "I trusted him," she whispered. "But I was wrong." The minister looked confused but allowed me to continue. I told the room about the phone calls, the secret investigator, and the darkness Travis had tried to hide. It was not easy. Some people turned their backs on me. Others offered quiet support. But one thing was clear, the wedding would not go on as planned. Lila dropped her bouquet and ran out of the church, breaking down in the churchyard. I followed her gently, putting a hand on her shoulder. "Lila," I said softly, "I am here for you. Not to hurt you but to help." She looked at me, full of pain and regret. I didn't know what to do, she said. I was scared. Then let's face it together, I whispered. You are not alone. After the wedding was called off, the air between Lila and me was heavy, filled with sorrow, anger, and an unspoken hope. We sat together on the worn bench outside the churchyard, the afternoon sun warming our shoulders but unable to melt the chill inside our hearts. Lila's tears came without warning. Grandma, I'm so sorry. I should have believed you sooner. I was scared of losing him, of being alone. I reached out, holding her hand tightly. You are not alone anymore, Lila. We have each other, and we will get through this. Over the next days, we faced many challenges. Friends who took sides, whispers in the town, and the painful process of telling the truth again and again. But the most important thing was that we were together. With Claire's legal help, we filed reports against Travis. The evidence was strong, and the authorities began to investigate. Lila started attending counseling. She was brave, facing her fears and learning to trust again. I helped her as best I could, offering the love and support only a grandmother can give. Our family slowly began to rally around us. My children realized the truth and apologized for their silence. It wasn't the happy ending we dreamed of, but it was a beginning, a chance to rebuild and find peace. And as the weeks passed, I saw a new strength in Lila's eyes, one born not of pain but of survival. Our story is not just about betrayal or revenge. It's about courage, forgiveness, and the power of family. After the wedding was stopped and the truth was out, Travis tried to keep his mask on. But masks never last forever. With the evidence Claire helped gather, the police reopened old cases and looked deeper into his background. One afternoon, I got a call from the detective assigned to the case. He told me that Travis had a history of violence stretching back years. Assaults, threats, even a hidden restraining order from a woman he once dated. It was a relief to know the truth was finally catching up to him. But justice moves slowly. Travis hired expensive lawyers and tried to silence witnesses. He spread lies about me and Lila, trying to turn the town against us. At times I felt exhausted and scared. But Lila and I stood firm. We leaned on each other when the world felt like it was against us. Our family, though shaken, grew closer. My children apologized for doubting me and promised to protect their mother and sister. One night, sitting by the fireplace, Lila looked at me with tears in her eyes. Grandma, I don't know how I got so lucky to have you. I squeezed her hand gently. You are stronger than you know. And so am I. Through all the pain and betrayal, I learned that strength isn't about never falling. It's about rising every time you do. And our story isn't just about revenge. It's about hope. The courtroom was cold and silent as Travis faced the charges stacked against him. Months of preparation, evidence, and witnesses came together in a tense battle for justice. Lila and I sat together, holding hands, waiting for the truth to finally win. Travis's lawyers fought hard, trying to discredit us, but the weight of truth was on our side. When the verdict came, the judge's words felt like a warm light breaking through the darkness. Guilty. For the first time in years, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. We had fought not just for ourselves but for all the silent victims like me. After the trial, life slowly began to heal. Lila and I rebuilt our relationship, stronger and more honest than ever. I found peace in knowing I had stood up and made a difference. Our story wasn't just about pain, it was about courage, justice, and hope. And those scars remain, they remind us of the battles we survived. To anyone watching this, if you or someone you love is facing pain or betrayal, remember, you are not alone. There is strength in truth and power in standing up. If you are still with me on this story, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications to hear more stories that matter. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from so we can connect as a family. Back to my story. After the courtroom drama settled, a different kind of battle began, the one inside our hearts. Lila and I spent long evenings talking, sometimes crying, sometimes laughing. The walls we thought were broken began to rebuild with honesty and love. She shared her fears, her regrets, and I shared my pain and hopes. Our family started to heal too. My children reached out more often, and slowly, we mended the gaps that had grown too wide. I found solace in small things: a walk in my garden, a letter from a friend, the warmth of a hug. Though the wounds from the past remained, they no longer controlled me. Instead, they became reminders of my strength and resilience. I began volunteering at the local support center, helping other women find their courage. It was a way to turn my pain into purpose. And through it all, I learned that healing is not a destination but a journey, one we walk step by step. Life has a way of surprising us when we least expect it. After the storm of betrayal and pain, I found new friendships that gave me hope and strength. One afternoon, while volunteering at the support center, I met Ruth. She was a widow in her 80s, full of life and wisdom. We bonded instantly over shared stories and laughter that echoed through the room. Ruth reminded me that even after loss, there is joy to be found. Together, we started a small garden at the center, a place where healing could grow alongside the flowers. Lila began working there too. It was a chance for her to rebuild her life and help others facing pain. Our family grew stronger with every passing day. My children visited more often, and slowly, the silence between us softened. Sometimes I still think about the pain Travis caused, but I don't let it define me. Instead, I focus on what I've gained: love, resilience, and a family who stands by me. If you're watching this story, please know you're never alone. No matter how dark the night, the dawn always comes. Thank you for being part of this journey with me. As the seasons changed, I found myself reflecting more and more on everything that had happened. The pain, the betrayal, the fight, and the healing. Life had taught me hard lessons. Some came wrapped in heartbreak, others in moments of unexpected grace. I learned that trust is fragile, but courage can rebuild what's broken. That forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, but freeing yourself from the chains of anger. Most importantly, I discovered that strength is not about how much you can carry alone, but knowing when to reach out and lean on others. Lila and I talked often about these things. We promised to be honest with each other, to protect what we had rebuilt. Our family, once fractured, was learning to knit its pieces back together with patience and love. I knew the road ahead would still have challenges, but I was ready. Because I had found something stronger than fear, hope. And as I looked out at the horizon, I realized this was only the beginning of a new chapter in my life. The years that followed were not easy, but they were mine. I learned that victory does not always roar. It sometimes whispers softly in the quiet moments of peace. I found strength in forgiveness, not to forget what was done, but to free myself from its hold. Lila and I rebuilt our lives, brick by brick, heart by heart. We found joy in simple things: a shared smile, a warm meal, a gentle hand to hold. Our family, once fractured by pain and silence, was slowly mending with love and understanding. And in those moments, I felt something I hadn't in a long time: hope. Hope that even in the darkest nights, there is a dawn waiting. Hope that the bonds of family can heal, even after the deepest betrayals. If my story teaches you anything, let it be this: you are stronger than you think. Your voice matters. And even in the face of the cruelest storms, there is a path to peace. After the court case and the healing, I thought the worst was behind me. But life has a way of testing us when we least expect it. Word of my story spread through Willow Creek and beyond. Some called me brave, others whispered behind closed doors. But the truth was, I never sought to be a hero. I just wanted to live. Soon, women from the community began reaching out to me. They shared their own stories of pain and survival. It was overwhelming but also powerful. I realized my fight had become bigger than me. I started organizing meetings, helping create a safe space for those who had suffered in silence. Yet not everyone was ready to accept change. Some old friends drifted away. Some family members remained distant. But my spirit stayed strong. I learned that true strength means standing firm, even when you stand alone. And with every woman I helped, I felt my purpose grow. The road was long and sometimes lonely. But I walked it with hope, and with the knowledge that every step forward was a victory. The more I shared my story, the more I realized I wasn't alone, and neither was anyone else who had suffered in silence. Women from Willow Creek and neighboring towns began coming to me, seeking advice, comfort, and courage. Together we formed a support circle, a small but powerful force of survivors who refused to be silenced. We met in community centers, homes, even church basements, sharing stories and tears, laughter and strength. Some nights, I wondered how a 78-year-old woman like me could make a difference. But every smile, every hug, every grateful word reminded me that age is just a number. One day, the mayor invited me to speak at a town meeting about domestic abuse and support services. Standing before the crowd, I felt both nervous and proud. I told them about the pain, the betrayal, but also about hope and healing. My words sparked conversations that had long been avoided. And slowly, the town began to change. New programs were created. More women found help. My journey had come full circle, from victim to survivor to advocate. Yet, even with this progress, challenges remained. Travis's shadow still lingered for some, and the fight for justice was never truly over. But I faced each day with quiet strength, knowing that every voice raised in truth could light the darkest night. After all the pain and chaos, my family slowly began to heal. My children, who had once distanced themselves, started visiting more regularly. There were awkward moments and hard conversations, but the walls of silence finally started to come down. Lila and I worked together to rebuild trust, not just between us but within the whole family. We held family dinners, sharing stories and laughter, trying to create new memories to replace the old wounds. It wasn't perfect. Some scars still ran deep, and some wounds reopened from time to time. But every effort mattered. We learned that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means moving forward despite the past. One evening my son told me quietly, "Mom, I'm sorry we didn't believe you. I see now how strong you've been." His words meant more than I could say. I realized then that strength is not just for survivors, it's for those who love them too. Together we faced the future with cautious hope. Lila's journey from pain to courage became a beacon for many women in our town. She started volunteering at the support center, sharing her story openly. Her honesty gave others hope, showing that even after betrayal you could stand tall again. She organized workshops for young women about healthy relationships and self-respect. Watching her transform into a leader filled my heart with pride. Her strength was a powerful reminder that healing is possible. One day, a local school invited Lila to speak about her experiences. Standing before a room full of teenagers, she spoke with honesty and passion. She told them about choices, consequences, and the importance of trusting your instincts. Her words sparked important conversations that rippled through families and schools. The community began to change, becoming more aware, more compassionate. Lila's light was shining bright, a testament to resilience and hope. The winds of change swept through Willow Creek like a gentle storm, quiet yet impossible to ignore. Neighbors who once whispered in fear now spoke openly about abuse and healing. Local leaders began prioritizing resources for survivors and education about healthy families. New support programs blossomed, and the community grew stronger together. At town events, I saw women wearing bracelets symbolizing strength and survival, a small but powerful sign of solidarity. Lila and I often walked hand in hand through the streets, proud of the progress but aware of the work still ahead. We understood that healing was ongoing, that justice wasn't a moment but a movement. At the center of it all was love, love that refused to be silenced or broken. My story had sparked a fire in this town, turning pain into purpose. And as the sun set over Willow Creek, I felt peace settle over my heart. We had fought hard, but we had also grown stronger. Together. As I sit here today, years after that painful chapter began, I see how far we have come. The scars remain, yes, but they are reminders of survival, not defeat. Lila and I walk forward, not looking back with bitterness, but with gratitude for the lessons learned. Our family, once fractured, is stronger, bound by love, forgiveness, and understanding. Willow Creek, once silent in pain, now sings songs of healing and justice. And through it all, I have learned that hope is the quiet force that carries us through the darkest nights. It is the light we must hold on to, even when all seems lost. If my story teaches you anything, let it be this. No matter how deep the wound, no matter how fierce the storm, you have the strength to rise. You have the power to heal. And you are never, ever alone. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you found hope in this story, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Share your thoughts and where you're watching from in the comments below. Let's hold each other up now and always. Together,